All right. Well, let's get started. Good morning. Forgive me for looking a little sleepy, maybe. It's 3:30 here on the East Coast where I am today, back in the States. But welcome to the November call for the November ZDHC forum call. We have a few calls, well, we have a few notes to get through, so we'll get right into that, and then we'll have a conversation
Okay.
with Francesco, Umesh, and Andy. So, for our calls to action, I've skipped the next slide. So we have a signatory survey that is the deadline to enter the survey is for 12th of December. So please take a look into your inboxes and find that should be with your newsletters. Also, the Chemicals to Zero Progressive signatory review has been extended. The deadline is now the 28th of November, so that's in 2 days. We also have several upcoming webinars. The MMCF Guidelines version 3.0 in Chinese on the 30th of December. And then in January, on the 22nd, is Suppliers to Zero version 2.0. And you can use the QR codes there to sign up. Of course, it's always on our event platform, events.roadmaptozero.com. And finally, you can join us for well, not finally, but for events, you can join us for the ZDHC European Conference summary call at 11 a.m. CET. That's in a few hours from now. And again, you can use the QR code to sign up or join us via the event platform. Also, there's a save the date for upcoming conferences. So in a couple days is the South Asia Conference in Bengaluru on the 28th of November. In December on the 3rd is the East Asia Conference in Shanghai. And finally on December 10th is the ZDHC Turkey Conference, which will be virtual. And again, you can sign up on events.roadmaptozero.com. Finally, for forum calls, next month we will be looking back over the year with Frank Mitchell and Joe Little. It's going to be a very nice conversation about where ZDHC has been, what we're looking forward to for the next year. Um, and then in January, we will be trying something new. We'll see how that goes. I believe the panel is to be confirmed, but that's going to be very exciting. And in February, we're going to have a conversation from a brand perspective with our sector leads. If you have not registered for the forum calls, well, we'll share those QR codes with you again at the end. But now we're going to have a conversation with Andy Lee, the head of environmental and compliance at Coates, Umesh Koro, our technical associate in the SCM Competence Centers, Francesca Bianco, our chief program officer, and I'll be hosting the conversation. So without further ado, let's get started. So, Francesco, well, welcome. And let's get right into it to keep our time. What is Supplier to Zero? I believe everybody knows you.
What is supply to zero?
What
Supply
is
to
Supplier to
zero.
Zero? Yes.
Supply to zero is something fairly simple. You can think of it as the fitness test, or versus, for example, the work plan, where supplier roadmap to zero represent the work plan, and the fitness checkup that you do, or the fitness test that you do, is actually how you are able to perform against your work plan. So you can also think of that very simply versus, the recipe versus the taste test. So if you think of the supplier roadmap to zero as the recipe, then supplier to zero is the taste test. So you see how well the cake is baked and how satisfied you are about it. So supplier to zero is in fact the assessment tool or the improvement methodology to that establish how well or how much mature a supplier has become into implementing the supplier roadmap to zero.
Well, my next question for you is how Supplier to Zero version 2.0 and how a supplier's roadmap to zero are connected. You touched on that a bit. Would you like to go into more depth?
Well, you again, you can I can make another example to make sure that everyone is absolutely clear. So the supplier roadmap to zero, think of it as the textbook, and then you think of supplier to zero as the test that you do at the end, or the exam that you will do at the end, which will enable you to understand how well you have learned the content and implemented and know about the content that is in the supplier roadmap to zero. This principle, so roadmap to zero versus the sector specific to zero program or tool, is the same whether it is about supplier, whether it is about brands, whether it is about formulators, etc. So the same principle. One is the textbook, the other one is uh, the test, the final
Mm-hmm.
test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And it did just update to version 2. Why was that necessary? What was the reasoning behind it?
Well, again, I'll try to make an analogy. Supplier to Zero version 1 is only assessing, so the level of your achievement depends on who's doing the assessment. So if it is yourself, it is a self-assessment, or if it is a third party through a desktop review, then you get level 2. And then we never really wanted to develop further because we saw the need of change. But level 3 would have been, if you are assessed by a third party.
Hmm.
Now, if we come back to the analogy of the workout plan, you can say that Supplier to Zero version 1 assess how many times you go to the gym. But Supply to Zero version 2 assess how much improved you are after attending the gym. So it
Hmm.
is really not only looking at who is conducting the assessment, but also how much you have improved your performance. So that is why we felt we should abort the further development of Supply to Zero version 1 and opt instead and invest our resources into developing Supplier to Zero version 2, which is much more useful to supplier and for everyone actually involved in the supply chain to really measure how well the textbook has been learned and implemented.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And well, let's go into the details on that, Umesh. How
Yep.
will this better reflect the realities of supplier operations and challenges?
Yeah. So this is a very, a very nice question, Andrew. So when we talk about the new version of Supply to Zero, yes, it is version 2, and it has been designed with great intention to reflect how suppliers actually operate and the challenges they face on the ground. So there are three major ways this comes through. The first one is kind of clear alignment with real facility processes. The new version maps requirements directly to what suppliers already do in their day-to-day chemical management system implementation, the wastewater testing, the waste management, and upstream supplier engagement. So instead of adding new burdens, it kind of strengthens existing practices and provides a harmonized structure that suppliers can implement without reinventing their systems. The second is a much more practical and evidence-based approach, which introduces a consistent format for requirements, performance criteria, and evidence expectations across all the three levels of supply to zero. This helps suppliers, to understand exactly what they need to demonstrate on how reducing the ambiguity and improving assessment readiness. It also acknowledges the varying maturity levels of suppliers and provides them with the realistic pathway for progress. The third and the last one is the framework accounts for real world constraints. Now, whether a facility is an indirect discharge or zero liquid discharge, or it's a vertically integrated facility or handling complex chemical categories, the program now provides differentiated and relevant criteria.
Hmm.
We have also strengthened the upstream supplier applicability, which was a major missing link in earlier version. But we have structured it in a way that is both achievable and scalable. So talking about this overall supply to zero version 2 is kind of closer to the realities of factory operations because supplier feedback, brand expectations, and technical learnings from the implementation over the last several years, it shaped
Mhm.
it for this version.
Very nice. And I know it's not out yet, but can you tell us where we are on the timelines and the progress? Don't have to be specific, but just an idea.
So is this a question to me or the
Yes, sorry,
Prabhasar?
Umesh. Yes, to you. It was a clarification from Helen just to say that version 2 is not yet out, and we
Yeah.
thought maybe to say like where are we in the process?
Yeah. So currently, we the version 2 is under development. We are working on that. We are having the pilots, and if we can provide more details, Francisco can provide more
Yeah,
elaborate
well, of
explanation.
course. We are
Right.
right in the middle of the pilot. Actually, it is ending on the 30th of this month. This is the first of the two pilots that are scheduled for before the release. There will be a second pilot specifically addressing a solution provider, while at the moment, the pilot that is running is addressing suppliers themselves.
Hmm.
So they are doing their self-assessment, they are reporting back their finding, their comments, and their suggestions and recommendation, which in the month of December we will read very thoroughly and include as much as possible into the new framework development, which then will go into January for the second pilot, which is particularly addressing, like I said, solution provider. And we originally communicated about wanting to release a Supplier to Zero in April. That might extend a little bit further because we received a request back in August from the brand to have a more extensive um, pilot period. So we extended the original pilot from being of 6 weeks to actually 2.5 months. So that is a little bit impacting all the consequent actions. So there might be a slight delay, and we might go and release this framework in at the end of Q2.
Hmm. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Andy, now time to you. So first, welcome to the forum call. Thank you for being here with us. And I would love to learn a little bit about what motivated your facility to join the Supplier to Zero version 1 program.
Wow. First of all, I'm from Coats. This is a sewing thread supplier in apparel and footwear. We also provide the structural component for footwear. And we have web processing. That's why ZDC has been very important to us. And then when we were implementing the chemical management system, ZDC TIG has been a great tool to support us for the implementation. And our chemical management system was developed based on the guideline. But unlike EMS, there is no assessment scheme to evaluate the performance.
Hmm.
But fortunately, we found Supply to Zero has been a very good assessment tool. And it's also easy for us to show our progress to our key stakeholders like customer. That's the reason.
Very nice. And I also understand that you are participating in the self-assessment pilot that Francesco was just discussing.
Mm.
What has that been like? Have they been nice? Were there snacks?
Wow, that we have a lot to tell because this is of course this is a very challenging program to us. We are participating this the pilot of the version 2 Supply to Zero. It has been a very interesting learning to us
Hmm.
because we can see the industry expectation for future development. That's how we view this. And to my point of view, I have seen a comprehensive expectation in chemical management system from this program. We also see a very interesting part to us, which is compared with version 1. Version 2 actually introduces the management to the upstream supplier. This is a major part, and this has been a very significant difference. And the requirement is to connect the supply chain for traceability and impact the upper level. And the challenge is not easy to engage upper level supplier from the supply chain. And the
Hmm.
meaning of some of chemical management requirement is not applicable for certain supplier because we have some supplier like spinning mill, they have no chemical usage in the production process. So we also look forward to ZDHC and provide further guideline to these kind of case. Also, some of requirement just cannot. We doubt some of requirement is it's just still I think we need to discuss about the some of the requirement because we found it's very difficult to reflecting the impact of a business scale, and
Hmm.
like only consider the absolute total emission volume instead of intensity. So it can be difficult for large scale factory to adopt and reflecting the true performance. That's how we view that. Challenging, but as this is the piloting stage, and we would more than happy to discuss with ZDHC and how to improve that.
Hmm. Hmm. That's fantastic.
Mm.
Well, let's move back to Umesh here because I have a question for you on how,
Yeah.
let's see, how can Supplier to Zero version 2 help turn shared commitment into measurable systemic change?
Oh, okay. So, this Supplier to Zero version 2 takes the industry's collective commitment to cleaner chemistry, safer production, and transparency, and converts it into measurable, verifiable progress. It does this, through two core design elements. The first one is stricter stepwise performance criteria across all the three levels of STZ. Each level represents a meaningful increase in the maturity. Level 1 ensures the foundational conformance and basic chemical management system functionality. The level 2 requires full process control and evidence of consistent implementation. The level 3 encourages suppliers to adopt the industry best practices, the advanced risk management, high ZDHC MRSL conformance, and along with that, robust environmental KPIs. So, as the criteria become more stringent and comprehensive as you progress, the
Hmm.
progression leads to measurable improvement over the time. So, rather than just declarations of intent. The second one is driving change beyond the facility into the upstream supply chain. One of the biggest systemic shift in the STZ version 2 is the expansion of the applicability to the upstream suppliers, the sub-suppliers and subcontractors, the material suppliers. So this means the responsibility for the safer chemicals, and the process control of the applications does not stop at the factory gate. The facilities are encouraged and later required to bring their upstream sub partners onto the same roadmap. So that's where the systemic change happens when suppliers influence the practices of their own suppliers. So together, these two elements shift the program from commitment to the kind of a transformation. And the suppliers are not just meeting the isolated requirements, they are moving along this structured maturity pathway and bringing their value chain with them. So this creates consistency, the comparability, and real impact across the industry.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you very much. And I have a couple more questions for you, Andy. So you're
Okay.
taking part in this pilot, but you've been working with Supplier to Zero version 1.0 for a while. What kind of changes and improvements have you seen with your facility over that time?
Wow. I think, of course, it helps us to evaluate and improve our chemical management system. That is a very important part, and also deliver a better performance and control the risk, chemical compliance risk.
Hmm.
And also, I think that's the process to drive for the continuous improvement to help us. We based on all these expectation criteria. We form our team and with responsibility and the structure of chemical committee and to control the chemical risk. And we train our chemical office up. This is a very positive benefit to us. And I think we learn from this process, and we have a lot of experience and capacity being built through this journey.
Hmm. And I feel like you have already touched on the benefits of Supplier Roadmap to Zero, which was my last question, but is there anything more
Okay.
you'd like to add to that?
Mm. Well, so to supply to zero, okay. I think the benefit for supply to zero is
Supplier roadmap to zero. Sorry, I mixed them up. Yeah,
supplier roadmap to
the
zero. Okay,
roadmap to
supplier
zero.
roadmap.
Yes.
Okay, roadmap. That's bigger scope, and I think this is very important to us and contribute to our group sustainability goal. This is a big one, and align the chemical management criteria across the group because Coast is running more than 30 dye houses around the world. So this is quite important to align the chemical management criteria and also help us to solve our wastewater problem from changing the input chemicals. We used to spend quite a lot of resources and for the output in the wastewater treatment plant, but this is a completely different way of thinking and to think about how to change the input chemicals, improve that. And I think another benefit is to contribute to product compliance. This is quite important to us because we have our commitment to our customer and to support us to fulfill our commitment and ensure 100% compliance to the product to our customer. We also improve the chemical management system, environment management system, and also we improved our performance, chemical module performance in HIC facility environment module. That's another benefit. And our performance of chemical module was improved from 20% to 96% in the past 5 years for the facility environment module, which is quite encouraging for our facility.
Very nice.
Mm.
And we now move to our last question, unless we have a few in the chat, and then we'll go take a look at that. But Francesco, how can suppliers and brands jointly maintain momentum towards the roadmap to zero goals?
There is a big momentum at the moment, but there is also a lot of fatigue in supply chain. And I totally hear what Andy says. You know, we keep raising the bar, we keep making things a little bit harder. And so for me, the one of the best way to keep momentum is actually to recognize those efforts. So from supplier to make visible their efforts, their investment, and make it understood to their partner, to their upstream suppliers. So, you know, for example, Andy, explaining to your upstream suppliers, I know that you are in a very specific part of the supply chain, so very, very, very upstream, but still, you know, for a fabric supplier or a leather supplier, you know, engaging their upstream supplier into this process will bring a lot of momentum, as well as making this effort visible to their customer is really important. And for the customer, so the brands, but not only all the actor in the supply chain, to recognize this effort, that will make a big difference. So, you know, it's making visible your effort in a way and in a language that is known and understood globally. That's very, very important. And second is recognizing those effort through, you know, business allocation, for example, but also in many other ways, recognizing these efforts that are put into continuous improvement where not all suppliers are actually doing that effort. Engaging competitors into this improvement is essential, and that will bring really the big impact. So yeah, I encourage everyone to be open to communicate about their efforts and also open to recognize and reward those investment and those efforts.
Great. We do have a couple of, thank you very much. We do have a couple of questions from the chat, so we can move over to that. Umesh, I know you did answer this, but we have some time, so if you can answer it live as well. Could comments and issues? Yeah. So you're doing these pilots. Issues might come up. There will be comments. I mean, of course, this is the testing period. Will that slightly alter the STZ version 2 requirements? I guess it's a more question of how do you handle the feedback from the pilots, from the pilot studies?
So definitely, Andrew, you know, we are receiving the comments, the feedback, and suggestions on pilot. The pilot is still ongoing, and definitely the comments and feedback received from the pilot will be considered wherever relevant for an update on the requirements. So currently the requirements are in the draft stage,
Hmm.
and the comments will definitely be considered and communicated back to the whomsoever have provided these feedback and comments. And that is the real objective of this pilot actually. you know we want to keep it practical. The protocol should be the practical, and along with that it should be well consulted with the ZDHC stakeholders, and that's the real objective of this pilot.
Hmm.
If I can add to that,
Yeah,
Andrew,
yeah, please, Francisco.
because I witnessed that yesterday. I'm here in India in the our Mumbai office together with Christina. Christina is our sector lead for the supplier. And I witnessed myself with my eyes that Umesh and Christina were basically closed up in a room for the whole day, reviewing the comments that we have already received so far, and to try to get their head around into how to address those comments. So yeah, it was. But it's basically from morning to late evening doing that. And that's going to
Hmm.
be the pattern also for the month of December, when all the comments will be actually received. And yeah, I would like also to thank, I don't know how many suppliers are there in the room, but we have already received quite a few comments. So I would like to thank all of you who contributed, and also remind you at the same time that yeah, let's not ask for an extension because December is already quite a tight timeline for us to work on incorporating all these comments. Yeah. So
Hmm.
thank you again.
Thanks, Francisco, for adding more clarity to this.
I'm just seeing if there's any other questions in the chat. We, and please feel free, folks, to add some if you have not yet. Let's see, we do have one. So the question is, do you know how, and just to any of you, I guess probably to Umesh or Francesco, but do you know how the implementation and improvement will work with the new supplier to zero version 2? At the moment, we were trying to do level 1, then level 2, but now with the new implementation system, the levels and the confidence level, and then they
It's
trail
different.
off.
That is a question mark.
Yes.
Yes, I saw that. Actually, it will be very handy having a slide to picture that because it's far easier to visualize it and understanding than trying to explain it. But basically, we are moving from a system where the level were depending on the who was doing the assessment. Now we do consider that. We also have additional type of assessment. So we have self-assessment, we have desktop assessment, we have second party, and then we have third party assessment on site.
Mhm.
So four type of assessment possible, but the level of achievement are strictly related. So level one, level two, and level three is strictly related to the performance that you have achieved. So you can achieve level three through a self-assessment, and you can achieve level one through a third-party on-site assessment. So it doesn't matter really only who is doing the assessment. What matters the most is how far you have gone into your implementation. So I know it is a little bit difficult to picture without a slide, but hopefully it answers your question.
No, that makes sense. It's almost like before you were choosing your teacher in a way to be like, I want to take this level or that level of the of the
Yeah,
of
I
the
want
assessors, not
to.
the
Yes,
teacher, but
exactly.
and
Yeah, I
then
can lift 150 kilogram. I can run 100 meter in 11 seconds. I can. You demonstrate all of that. It
Mhm,
doesn't
mhm.
matter who's watching you doing it. What matters is that you do that.
Yeah.
It can be yourself taking the time, or it can be a second party or a third party, or an entire stadium looking at you.
I guess it just depends on what motivation you need.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you three for being part of the discussion. We don't have any more questions. We'll leave it open for another, 10, 30 seconds, see if anybody comes in. But otherwise, I would just remind you all to check for signatory reviews, and we have these events coming up, webinars, conferences, everything's on our website. And to make sure that you sign up for our newsletter and, all the good things to keep track here. We'll be with you next month in December for the year look back with Frank and Joe, and then we'll be doing some new content in January, February. And there are still no open questions, so thank you very much. Yes,
Thank
and
you.
sorry, I have a note from Helen. Continue the discussion on the community forum if you think of something after, and we'll get back to you.
There you
Thank you
go.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Have a
Bye.
bye.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Good.